all the bits and pieces, but he's grown up around all of this. He's now putting all the pieces together. But yeah, all of that to say, and I know we're kind of walking down family memory lane here, folks, but all that to say that is the heritage that a lot of parents and grandparents have left. And their kids and their grandkids need to know these things. Because again, you think about people like the leader of a Christian ministry and radio network and all these things. And a lot of people think, well, I'll never have a life that lives up like that. I'll never be able to do that. But you know what? You're called to do what you're called to do. I'm called to do what I'm called to do. We're not all called to the same thing, but we're all called to make disciples. We're all called to have influence in our circle. And so when my wife's grandmother, Logan's great-grandmother, walked across the street and asked that lady, can I take your son to church with my son? She had no idea that young boy would meet the Lord and grow up to plant radio stations around the world and then to become the president of a network of Christian broadcasters to keep the airwaves open. Do you know how many people then that my wife's grandmother, Logan's great-grandmother, you know how many people she reached for the Lord? You know how many lives were transformed because she was obedient to walk across the street and ask a single mother, can I take your son to church? Never underestimate the influence that you can have on someone and the influence they will have. We're all standing on somebody's shoulders. That man may have introduced the president that day and worked closely with him and planted radio stations all over the world. He was standing on the shoulders of the lady that asked him to church as a 5-year-old. Wow. Maybe that puts it into perspective, because I think at times some of us think, I can never aspire to be someone that has that kind of influence. Well, actually, you can. I think that's a pretty cool story. So I thought when I saw him, that's who that was. But I knew him much later, so he looked a lot different. So I snapped a picture of the screen, sent it to my wife, and I said, is that Brant? And she texts back here at the desk, yep, that's him. There you go. All right, thanks for watching. May God save America. Take care.
Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff operations officer, assisted the national security team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan, and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
For the next 10 days, we're stopped, all ground stopped.
Okay, ground stop to 0630 for how long?
10 days.
The announced 10-day shutdown lasted only about 8 hours, but sources tell CBS News it stemmed from a dispute between the FAA and the Pentagon over planned testing of a high-energy laser system intended to take down drones. The DoD argued the testing was urgent and would occur over 10 days. The FAA responded by closing the airspace without advance notice, citing special security reasons and kicking off a firestorm of finger-pointing.
Decisions made without notice or coordination puts lives at risk and creates unnecessary danger and confusion.
The news sent other government agencies, including TSA and lawmakers, scrambling for answers.
We received notice at around 4:30 this morning.
So after the closure had happened?
I believe that's the case.
Yes. So that's a problem. If there's a major closure, TSA should know that there's closure happening. So should other agencies within the government.
For flyers, confusion and cancellations.
The attendant told me that the flight had been canceled, all flights going to and from El Paso, and I was like in shock.
The Trump administration said cartel drones crossed into U.S. airspace, prompting the Pentagon to act, though it's unclear when. Earlier this week, an anti-drone laser shot down what was thought to be a foreign drone near the border. It was later identified as a party balloon.
The FAA and DoD are not directly commenting. Drones linked to Mexican cartels are believed to be operating in the border area around El Paso. That is a big concern for the Department of Defense. For the FAA, top of their mind, that midair collision in Washington, it appears they may have made a decision out of an abundance of safety, perhaps not an abundance of communication. Tony.
Chris, thank you very much.
Welcome back to More War Monday on the Rob Maness Show. We're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, border drones, Iran escalation, and knowing the truth about all of these things is very important to all of us. We're watching multiple flashpoints light up at once, and the picture is not very comforting sometimes. Starting at our own southern border, as you just saw, and into just the last 6 months of 2024, Customs and Border Protection tracked over 27,000 cartel drone incursions. These aren't hobbyists flying GoPro cameras. These are sophisticated platforms, moving drugs, scouting patrols, testing our defenses, and some of them, I guarantee you, are armed. And then you just saw that days ago, El Paso airspace was shut down on very short notice with almost no explanation. Something serious enough to ground civilian traffic doesn't happen by accident. We haven't done that since 9/11. In the Middle East, as diplomatic talks with Iran drag on, the president has surged more forces into that region, more troops, more ships, more aircraft. And at the same time, Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu is making it very clear, any deal with Tehran has to include the complete dismantlement of their nuclear program and ballistic missile threat, or there can be no deal. That's from Israel's perspective. Iran's response, more proxies, more attacks, more defiance. And of course, always lurking in the background is China, watching and waiting, and almost certainly learning how we respond when multiple threats hit at once, if not directly involved with the cartels helping them. America deserves the unfiltered truth about what's happening, not spin from the legacy media, not talking points from the old Pentagon press room that's now gone. And that's why I'm proud to bring on a man who's been on the front lines of both combat and independent journalism. My guest today is retired Special Operations Pilot and CEO of CDM Press, L. Todd Wood. He's also a key member of the new Pentagon Press Corps that's demanding answers and delivering real reporting to the American people for once. Todd, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back on, Rob. Really appreciate it. I enjoyed the show.
Yeah, well, first of all, we got to talk about a couple of things that not even related to that video. One is it's President's Day, so I want to acknowledge that George Washington was still is the greatest president America has ever had because of two reasons. He gave his commission back to Congress and gave up power instead of becoming a king at the end of the American Revolution. And in his farewell address, he advised this country to not get involved in too many, if at all, entangling alliances with foreign powers because of the trouble that it can stir up. And that's exactly what we're talking about today, isn't it?
Well, I didn't plan this backdrop, but I didn't even realize it was President's Day till a couple hours ago, but it works out well, huh?
Yeah, it does work out well. It does work out well. And for all you idiots out there, I don't care if he was a slave owner or not. There's a lot of bad things and a lot of our American and Western civilization, and especially Middle Eastern and Asian history about slavery and those kind of things. So get out of here. What else did I need to talk to you about before we move on to the... Oh, speaking of El Paso, Cowboys. Did you see
comment on Cowboys from AOC this weekend over at the Munich Security Conference. Her trying to be president of the United States. And speaking of nobody that's ever going to be president of the United States.
I did not actually. I was studiously avoiding all the hot air being generated over there in Munich. None of it seemed to be. The only thing I really enjoyed was Marco Rubio's speech, but other than that, I found it all just, Kaja Kallas talking about how the EU doesn't need the U.S. and all. It's just all blabber, So I didn't even. I didn't listen to it in depth.
She was trying to critique Secretary Rubio's fantastic speech, which I mean, I was so impressed with it. I actually tweeted out over it. This is what Marco Rubio was born for. It was that good of a speech. Whoever wrote it, and his delivery was perfection. It was a good team. But she was critiquing him of saying that his defense of Western civilization, which includes Spain, by the way, which did conquer like all of South America and Central America and Mexico and half of the landmass of the United States, if not more than half, and saying how the Mexicans were here first, essentially, and the and the Cowboys have nothing to do with Western civilization.
I think I remember something about mass child sacrifice of different conquered peoples down in that region of the world and these big temples. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, I have, and I seem to remember some guy. Maybe it was this guy named Cortez from Spain that introduced actually horses into this hemisphere that allowed the creation of cowboy.
Yeah, the revisionist history is interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. All right, so we have to get serious for a little bit. Now, the Washington thing is deadly serious. I'm glad that you have that picture up there. So let's talk about El Paso. First of all, did you, as a member of the Pentagon Press Corps, what information have you been given since all this took place a few days ago?
Well, it's kind of a one-way. I figured out you have to really develop relationships and dig and get sources in the Pentagon, because they're not going to tell you what's going on. I mean, even if you ask. Yeah. So, El Paso, I had a lot of experience back in my special operations days, because for some reason we used to run exercises through there often. And maybe it was because some of the Army forces were deployed there. But it's a great place to stage a lot of aircraft out of. And so we would do that. I remember vividly looking over the fence at the different, societies just a few hundred feet away across the fence, and the difference in culture and economic prosperity and all of that. But it is obvious that there is a drone problem in our country. I have been focused on this with the Department of War, more specifically toward Air Force and other high-value installations, infrastructure that we have that is highly vulnerable. But what bothers me is the pushback. Look, we have a drone problem. Look at Ukraine. We are very vulnerable. And if the Department of War wants to do something, you should let them do it and get out of the way. And that's my feeling. Stop crying about a few flights canceled or whatever. If they thought there was a threat, they should be able to deal with it. And I hope that chain of command gets resolved, and that they will have the priority on the border. Because right now it seems like some mayor in El Paso and some official in the FAA is trying to tell Secretary Hegseth how to defend the country. I don't like that at all.
Now there is an Army airfield, Biggs Army Airfield, that's very close to the El Paso airport, if I remember correctly. And look, I appreciate you guys, especially the helicopter guys and all that, because the B-1's most difficult training route for automatic terrain following and mountainous terrain starts essentially at El Paso and goes all the way down or around on the Rio Grande border of Texas. So you guys are always being called out to us as potential mid-air hazards and everything. But Biggs is a large airfield, and it's my understanding that since the Marines and the Army and the Air Force have been occupying this federal zone that was created early in the Trump administration, that Biggs is being used as an operating base. And if that's under threat, then certainly we want them to do something. I've been talking about this for over 2 years now. You've seen my coverage of this. I think I've had you on the show just to talk about the drone issue over Langley Air Force Base and up in New Jersey and those kind of places. So if we are operating from there and we have large amounts of activity and large amounts of assets there, my goodness, they need to defend that. And that defense is going to overlap, I think, with the El Paso airport.
And if they make a mistake, and shoot down a balloon, which may have happened, I don't know. So what? I would rather them make a mistake and shoot down a weather balloon than not make a mistake and have a B-1 taken out on the tarmac. That's, my concern is just the high value infrastructure that's completely unprotected. I mean, maybe there's a lot I don't know about already installed. My sense is that they're working on it feverishly. The Department of War and Secretary Hegseth has pushed for a lot of innovation. Was just at Fort Bragg and the Joint Innovation Outpost, looking at a lot of and how they generate this innovation in conjunction with industry, in conjunction with education and academia, and the military commanders on the ground and the soldiers on the ground in the field, and getting them what they need. So that process is ongoing. So I know they're working on it, but they may not be where they want to be yet. And so give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't like all this pushback against the Trump administration trying to defend our borders and trying to end the wars overseas and focus on this hemisphere where they're getting, it seems like every government agency is pushing back on that. And I don't like that one way at all. It wasn't like that in World War II, I don't think.
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, the pro-German crowd evaporated pretty quickly because there was a sizable pro-Germany crowd before the war started. And of course, we know what the Democrats did to our Japanese American brothers and sisters out west to eliminate that threat. And nobody, as a matter of fact, all the companies stood up and said, hey, what can we do to help? It didn't matter whether they made cars or boats or were textile people. They said, hey, what can we do to help? And they changed their factories. To the point where we're producing like a B-17 a day by the end of World War II. I think a Liberty ship a month or more when it comes to that kind of stuff. So yeah, well, we got to take a break. Time. When we come back, we'll keep talking about this. I want to get from you as an official Pentagon correspondent what you've been reporting on from a defensive perspective and the headway we've made, and also ask you about whether this FAA contention with DOD really happened or if that's just a story that's out there. We'll be right back.
National headlines, drone wars are taking over the border. On the U.S. side, local law enforcement is now using AI-programmed drones to locate drug traffickers and migrants. Meanwhile, on the Mexico side, cartels are using drones to find where to smuggle drugs in. The U.S. government has long used drones at the border, but local agencies getting involved is a different story. The National News Desk's Jeff Harris reports.
On the U.S. side, the goal is to keep drugs and migrants out. For Mexican cartels, they want to get the drugs in, both using high-tech drones to do so. But smaller law enforcement agencies are now joining in, taking the battle in the sky to new heights. Both the U.S. and the Mexican cartels now ramping up their use of drones, but for competing agendas. One side, keep drugs and migrants out. The other, sneak drugs in.
They've been using drones now for a while, and they're using it to smuggle drugs every single day into this country.
Stephen Willoughby, director of DHS's counter-drone program, telling a U.S. Senate committee last month, cartel drones made over 27,000 flights within 500 meters of the southern border during the last 6 months of 2024. They're flying between the hours of 8 p.m. and 4 a.m., when the cover of darkness can obscure illicit activity. Those drones aren't commercial. National security expert Derek Maltz telling Fox News, cartels operate with the most sophisticated military-grade weapons.
They have like drone technology, dropping explosives. They could do that tomorrow on our border patrol.
In response, several smaller law enforcement agencies are now stepping into the arms race. Arizona's Cochise County, which shares 84 miles of its border with Mexico, launching AI-enhanced quadcopters, which have thermal imaging to help locate potential cartel traffic. The drone maker CEO telling Axios, some drones can monitor anything from ground-penetrating radar to air quality and can measure a person's heart rate. New Mexico and Texas also launching drones, some of which can fly for hours, collect data using AI, and direct deputies to scenes using GPS. Now, the number of law enforcement agencies using drones has gone up significantly since 2018, jumping 150%, according to researchers at both Rutgers University and the Life Safety Alliance. I'm Jeff Harris reporting from Washington.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday, and we're talking about drone warfare here on the border of the United States. Think about that, 27,000 flights just from the cartels that have come at least up to the border. My guest today is CEO of CDM Press and Pentagon press correspondent L. Todd Wood, and he's a former helicopter pilot in special operations himself, so he understands this low-altitude airspace challenge that this is. But first, Todd, there was some reporting that the FAA pulled the trigger on this 10-day flight restriction around El Paso's airport because they were mad at the DOW. Is there any truth to that?
I don't know the truth behind it, but because they haven't told us. But I would guess that there's some, in my sense is there's some pushback among the more woke agencies, which the FAA is, I think, definitely part of that, at least in the leadership, the lower bureaucratic managers. But, it's a big deal when you got all these aircraft, and drones have just totally changed the whole complexity, made it much more complex. I'll give you one story. I was at El Paso, I remember, and it was a dark night, and we were doing an exercise, and we had probably 50 aircraft on the ramp. Rotors turning, large C-5s and C-141s coming in, bringing in, troops and moving people from aircraft to aircraft. And it was all on radio silence, on goggles, completely blacked out. And finally, one guy, helicopter pilot, couldn't take it anymore and came on the radio, full voice and said, C-5, stop. I remember that very clearly, don't go any further. So it is dangerous, and when you throw the mix of drones in there, it gets even more dangerous.
Yeah, about the drones, I kind of touched on this a little bit in the first segment about airspace deconfliction. In the military, we have what's called an air tasking order, which a large part of its function is not just assigning targets, but it's to deconflict all of the manned and unmanned military aircraft that are in the airspace from each other, so we can be on the lookout for stray civilian airplanes, enemy airplanes, and those kind of things. How in the heck is the system going to deconflict tens of thousands of these small, almost undetectable craft that are airborne in our airspace at the same time?
I think it's going to have to be a technological fix, because there has to be some way to stop these devices from getting close to other high-value aircraft. I don't know what that looks like. It could be something to fry their electronics, within a certain range. It could be, and that's what they're doing on the battlefield, is trying to disrupt their, navigation and getting to the target. But as you said, a lot of these could be weaponized. I mean, they could have, uh, you know, explosives on them or whatever going after the border patrol. So drone defense is a massive issue. It's a massive issue for our armored vehicles and our troops on the ground, even individuals. I think this is going to have to, there will be some, in my opinion, some kind of breakthrough that will be the golden BB, if you will, to take these out. But right now it's a mess. I don't think you can deconflict. And that's why I say give the DOW the rein. If they feel that there's a problem and they need to shut down airspace, this could happen often, actually. And we don't need the whining from the mayor of El Paso and Democrats trying to, get political points. I think they need to support the president and the administration in protecting our border. At least that's what patriotic Americans do. And unfortunately, a lot of them are not so patriotic.
Yeah, you saw in that opening clip at the top of the show, I'm pretty sure he's the Democrat mayor of El Paso, complaining about the airspace being shut down. But look, I mean, this is the defense of the nation. We're not talking about a couple of kids out here running their DJI drone through the airport's airspace. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about tens of thousands, military grade. The cartels have all the resources they need to purchase the same or better equipment even than the United States Armed Forces does. We know that the drones from the battlefield cases we've seen especially in the Ukraine-Russia war, that the drones are armed, that are highly effective, and that there are tactics, techniques, and procedures to prevent them from being taken down with, say, a mass electronic warfare weapon, which is something that, of course, we should have developed and on site in order to be able to do that for those that are susceptible to it. But you can't always do that. Matter of fact, the Russians and the Ukrainians are using fiber optic cabled guided drones now, aren't they?
They sure are. And we ran videos on armedforces.press about that. It looks like a spider web in some of these battlefields, just, tangled up everywhere, the fiber optics. And you mentioned something earlier that the pro-German crowd was taken care of or intimidated during World War II. I think we need to do the same thing with the pro-China crowd. I mean, obviously, you said China's behind a lot of this. I agree. These drones are bringing fentanyl into the country. The last I saw was 100,000, Americans dying a year from this drug. You've seen police officers touch a suspect and get fentanyl on them and, collapse. And some of them have died. So this is something that we really have to take seriously. So it's not just drones with explosives. This is a weapon. Fentanyl is a weapon.
And we should be treating it like it's an attack platform when they're flying into our airspace. We shouldn't treat it like it's just some criminal gang trying to get away with something. I mean, these are attacks on the people of the United States. I agree with you. Are you hearing anything officially from the Pentagon, folks? I mean, as you and I both said, we've been talking about this, defending our forces, especially our air bases and those kind of things, against drone attacks for several years now, because we didn't see any action taken against any of those incidents, like the one against Langley Air Force Base for 17 nights in a row, the incidents up in New Jersey. There's been some things come out about it, but nothing about defensive technology that has been developed and is being implemented at this point. I know there's a story about a laser that they took down a party balloon, which have metallic coatings on them, folks, and can be seen by radars and those kind of things for detection purposes. Not surprised that we might have shot one down with a laser. But what are we hearing officially from the new types of technology we're implementing to defend our airfields and stuff?
Well, I pressed the Air Force pretty hard on this. I spoke at length with the Air Force Chief of Operations, the Chief of Staff of Operations, a female civilian, and the Air Force actually issued a statement because we had put some pressure on, our assets sitting on the ramp undefended. And you've got in Ukraine, I said, at least put up some netting. I mean, at least you can defend a B-1 or a B-2 against an FPV drone with a netting. It can't get close. I mean, that's what they're doing in Russia. You drive down, or in Ukraine, you drive down some of the main highways, and there's netting over the highway. It's like driving through a tunnel. But
Mhm.
they issued a statement in response to some of our inquiries and said the Department of the Air Force takes unauthorized aerial system overflights of our installations assets very seriously. Drone incursions an urgent and evolving threat. Northcom and other government agencies and the Air Force are actively working to implement a layered counter UAS capability to detect, identify, track, and defeat UAS threats. This includes participating in exercises, deploying new technologies, training personnel, close coordination with other partners. And it talks about Title 10 authority and that the commanders of the base have to take action. And I think Hegseth just recently expanded that authority and kind of decentralized it down to the command level on the base. The base commander can do what he needs to deal, because there's been a lot of, for instance, in Whitman Air Force Base, where there was a Chinese trailer park, on the border of the base, owned by a Chinese NGO, and that has been dealt with. But the base commander had his hands tied at some point on some of these issues. So I think Hegseth has pushed that down, gave them authority, but also started the innovation, as we talked about. There was a pot of a few $100 million and 25 vendors that they're kind of incubating to develop technologies to defend against this threat.
Yeah, and that's good news. That's good news. I'm glad to hear that because the authorities piece was something that shocked me. Because I had been a base commander of a very large installation out in Albuquerque, New Mexico, with a lot of high value target type assets on it. And my going in assumption was I would be able to do what is necessary to defend the base and the people on the base and the assets on the base, no matter what, and was planning to do that. But apparently things changed over the time when I left the service in late 2011 and 2 years ago, when you're hearing 3- and 4-star generals at Langley Air Force Base saying, and 1-stars going, well, we don't have any authority to do anything about these. That's surprising and unconscionable. So I have to ask you this before I go to the break and we shift over to Iran. Were you on a C-17 with a nuclear reactor over the last 48 hours?
I was not, but I think I was on the Doomsday plane. So I can check that, as we talked about last time. We can tick that box.
I think it's great that Valor Atomics is working with the Department of War. They've now moved. They used the C-17 to move their initial test reactor, I think. I heard it was 5 megawatts out to Utah for its testing and those kind of things. But I have to just be questioning. I've been dealing with radioactivity since I was 17 years old professionally, and that's an interesting choice to ride on the airplane with it. But it made for some great copy. And it's some great news that the president's plan and his orders are being acted on to put nuclear power at the top of the priority list.
That's a big story. I sat down with the Undersecretary of War for Research and Development, the guy that was, I'm spacing on his name, but he was at Uber for a long time, a tech guy. And we talked about this in depth. And, my question is, I love having micronuclear power on platforms, assets, tanks, but those things can be blown up. So what happens then? How do you secure that in some kind of, combat situation? That I do have that concern.
Yeah, the same kind of concern I have, but I'm a huge advocate of putting micro and small modular reactors, especially on national security installations. We had a plan and a proposal to do that. Actually got some study funding approved before I left the Air Force out at Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico to do a study on it. It's the right thing to do, because even that power, if you put a large enough small modular reactor on a base, you can sell that power back to the grid and beef up the commercial grid in that state or surrounding area during peacetime, when you don't need to, close the doors, so to speak, and put your defenses up. So we got to take another break. When we come back, we'll move into the Iran discussion with L. Todd Wood.
What if millions around the world could access Bible teaching and worldview training for free right now without hitting a paywall? That's exactly what happens every day at worldviewtube.com because of the Worldview Weekend Foundation. We don't lock our live stream behind PayPal. We don't restrict our content to members only. Instead, the Worldview Weekend Foundation helps cover the cost of delivering free educational and ministry programming to people across the nation and around the world. And it's not just programming. My Sunday night church service, where I taught verse by verse through Revelation for 18 months, and now I am teaching through the book of Daniel, is made possible through the support of our church, Worldview Weekend Foundation. If you believe this kind of truth-centered biblical teaching must continue, donate today. Go now to worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address and phone number there if you'd rather give by phone or mail. That's worldviewfoundation.com. Thank you.
The talks resuming with Iran Tuesday, this time in Geneva. Trump has dispatched a second aircraft carrier to the region, the USS Gerald R. Ford.
In case we don't make a deal, we'll need it. If we don't have a deal, we'll need it.
Leading Trump's delegation in Munich, Secretary of State Marco Rubio received a standing ovation for giving what some called a reassuring message to European allies.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday. And I was going to show some of the Marco Rubio speech, but there's been so much of it out there. I would rather show the video of the aircraft carrier and its battle group. But my guest today is L. Todd Woods, CDM Press CEO, former Special Operations helicopter pilot, current member of the Pentagon Press Pool. And Todd, it's a big deployment. It's a big deployment.
It is. It is. And I hope we don't get into a major conflict. But at some point, I guess you just got to support the troops and hope they get back safely. So I'm not sure if we're at that point yet, but I don't want a big war with Iran. I'm worried about that. You and I have talked about that in the past. I would rather have other people do it if it's in their backyard, and we can support as needed. But I hope we don't get involved over there in a major conflict.
Yeah, I mean, you hear all this reporting, and I think people like you and I should talk about this openly. A lot of reporting about regime change, using airstrikes, those kind of things. It just doesn't work that way.
No.
Yeah.
No, there will be blowback. There will be consequences. There will be black swans. There will be unexpected. I guess consequences of a major military conflict. I have no doubt that we would be successful if it's well planned, which I'm sure it will be. But it's going to be expensive in lives and money, and I'm not sure it's in our best interest at this point. That's just me.
Yeah, I mean, the president and the team have shown that. I mean, they've shown that they can get these kind of things done in the way they want to get them done to meet their objectives. Because they've had very specific, precise objectives. The planning's been very good. Support in the Iran case, support from Israel's human intelligence network, obviously, and all the work that they did leading up to the strikes on the nuclear facilities with their air power and cyber power and those kind of things, prepared that battle space for our success in that operation the way it went down, which was a miracle, by the way. To get that many B-2s over a target and that many aircraft airborne around the world with no maintenance failures, nobody was even shot at, from what I could tell. At least not anywhere close to being accurate enough to say they were shot at. Anyway, so there's a lot that goes into that. I have not really been seeing reporting on ground forces that have been moved into this area. But I would think that some type of ground activity is going to have to occur if you're going to do a series of airstrikes that leads to some sort of regime change, maybe the top of the head of the snake type thing, like they did with Maduro and his boy.
Well, I think the whole I've been reporting heavily on the persecution of the Christians in Armenia, but I think the Pashinyan government is globalist and really trying to harm the Christian church like they're doing in Ukraine. But there's a bigger play there. And as Azerbaijan, we've been friendly to them to help them get this Trump route for international peace and prosperity, which is a route connecting Turkey and Azerbaijan in the southern Armenia. And So I think that's Iran's border, right? So maybe you get basing out of Azerbaijan, maybe you get some type of other. There has to be some kind of deal being made right now. And my concern is the Christians always get thrown under the bus when there's a deal. But I want to focus on that issue. But I do think that there's something going on from the north which will destabilize Iran out of Azerbaijan. I think that happened last time, and I think this is trying to get some kind of basing rights or something out of there, or use of technology, or whatever it is.
Yeah, were you? I'm glad you brought that up, because this has been a question on my mind. I was a little bit surprised that Vice President Vance visited the Armenian Christian Holocaust Memorial of the genocide that was perpetrated on the Armenian Christians by the Azerbaijanis. Did that surprise you?
I knew he was going. I didn't. That's the thing to do when you go to Armenia, and it was by the Turks. It was the Turks that actually killed the Muslim population, the Turkish young Turks that killed the Armenians a century ago. 2 million of them. But I went to that memorial. I've been there. It's solemn, and you go to the museum. It's even worse. 2 million. They were throwing babies off cliffs and all kind of stuff. But I was not surprised he went there. I was surprised, and maybe he did it. And I asked some people close in the administration, were there talks behind the scenes, like you got to stop, putting priests in jail? I didn't get any indication that there were, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But Pashinyan's, yesterday we put out an article, or over the weekend, that he is again targeting and charging the Catholicos, who's the head of the Armenian Apostolic Orthodox Church, which is literally the first church in the first Christian country. They're trying to invade Echmiadzin, which is their Vatican in Armenia, outside of Yerevan, the capital, the first Christian cathedral ever. So this is the real deal there, and I'm not happy with how that community is being treated. And yes, we always have, I guess, other concerns, but in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon, we see the same pattern. Ukraine, where, okay, we need to do something, so the Christians just take it in the chin, and that has to stop, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that that's part of what the president's intent was by taking on essentially the entire Middle East region. And we did that show not long ago about your trip over there, especially in Lebanon, and those kind of things, is that the policy was going to be that Christian minorities are protected too whenever we are involved, especially when we are involved. Is that not accurate?
I wouldn't say it's not accurate. It's just, I don't want to use the wrong word, but sin of omission, right? I mean, you're not active. I think we should be actively using our bully pulpit to say there will be no more massacres of Christians here. That's in Lebanon, for instance, or in Syria, or there just won't be. But we don't hear that. We hear Tom Barrack saying, well, Christians all left, their community is dwindling, they're really not important anymore. That's just not true. So they are important. They have been intentionally harmed in Lebanon. We can go down that rabbit hole if you want. There's been a series of actions that have, hurt the Christian community there, demographically, economically, all the way from the Palestinian uprising to the Assad regime, refugees coming in, 2 million Sunni refugees, to the blow up in the port, which was very nefarious. So, I just want the Christians supported. That's it. I'm not being paid by anybody. It's just important to us as a company that this community is protected in the Middle East. It's, Christ walked in Lebanon. That community should stay there.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And when the president said what he said about the Nigerian Christians being slaughtered, that's where I thought, the policy shift was going to be, hey, you do this, and you can expect that we're going to come crush you. And that leads me to my next question. Speaking of Lebanon, what if we're going to take down Iran, the reconstitution of Hezbollah, Hamas, the PIJ, anybody that's pro-Iran inside what's left of Syria and Syria proper, what is the status of all of those proxy groups that you're hearing about? I mean, You don't see the media, the legacy media, talking about them much right now because, I mean, they were essentially pretty crushed between the Israelis and our activities over the last year. But they're always working to reconstitute themselves. And if they're reconstituted, you could expect bad actors to take part if we go and attack Iran again, right?
Yeah, well, Hezbollah in southern Lebanon is still there. It's not going to be disarmed by the government, which the U.S. has been trying to push. It's just not going to happen. I mean, 40% of the Lebanese army is Shia. They're not going to rise up and take on their own community. Hezbollah in the south, they're just not. I understand Israel has very legitimate security concerns by Hezbollah in the north with their hundreds of thousands of rockets and, as you say, continually reconstituting that ability to shoot projectiles into Israel. So it's a problem. I don't know how we're going to deal with it. I do know that the Christians just need to be part of that whole solution. That is something that I would like to see. Anyway, that's just how I roll.
Yeah, well, that's I think all of us would like to see that. You know, I mean, all the way from the northern part of Iraq, where the Kurds are, and into Syria, where the Kurds are. Christians in all of that area have been slaughtered several times over the years. Lebanon, as you talked about, the Armenians. You know, it's something that we've got to put a stop to it. It cannot be acceptable to go after Christians when it's not acceptable even to go after the Uyghur Muslims in China. I mean, we have faith groups that are supporting them, and our government has weighed in on that.
Well, you've got the Prime Minister of Armenia, Pashinyan, openly saying, "I've got a green light from the Trump administration to, attack the Christian church in Armenia." I don't know if I don't have any, confirmation that's true, but it is true. He's saying it. And when Vance comes to the country and doesn't say anything to the contrary, it gives the impression that Pashinyan is telling the truth. So the people in Armenia see this, and it's disturbing. I mean, and I can tell you, I'm getting calls from Lebanon and Armenia. Look, we need help. We're worried. We saw what happened to the Kurds in Syria, and we're worried. And that's the calls I'm getting at 4 a.m.
Yeah. And I'm not surprised that you're getting them because it's reality. It's reality, man. Well, we got to take our last break. When we come back, we will honor we lost a good one today, folks. The opening video will honor him, and you're going to love it. I'm not going to say anything about what it is. You're going to love it. And then we'll talk about if there is an agreement with Iran, what's got to be in it with L. Todd Wood. Be right back.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
God damn it! I'm on the tree line bomb!
Big Duke 6, Roger, 013, stand by.
Over to the Stone Age, son! Hey, son, now, man, go! All right, now, let me take care of this. All right? Get that out here! Sorry. See you now. All right. You better no, man. Sorry. Jimmy!
112, 013, Roger. They need some napalm down in the tree line. Can you get twisted around time to put it down here? Right, 13, you were fixing fuck with it. What's target? I'm gonna suppress some mortar fire off the tree line down there. Roger, here we go. Good. Give it all you got and bring in all your ships. Wing abreast.
Let him back, give me my chopper. Get him back to the hospital. Yes, sir. No. You gotta go with him. Come on, go.
By now, they've got about 30 seconds to on station. Get your people back and head down. It's going to be a big one.
We'll have this place cleaned up and ready to Jimmy, son. Don't you worry. Give me those shorts. Mission from the air cab. Present for me and the boys. I want to see you do your stuff in them. Out there, okay? Nothing else in the world smells like that. I love the smell of napalm in the morning. You know, one time we had a hail bomb for 12 hours. When it was all over, I walked up. We didn't find one of them, not one stinking dink body. The smell, you know, that gasoline smell. The whole hill. It smelled like victory. Someday this war's gonna end.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday, folks, and that video clip is probably the best delivered set of lines in a war movie delivered by an actor that happened in my lifetime, for goodness sake. And we lost Robert Duvall today, who, is my understanding, was a conservative too, which makes it even better. But he was a phenomenal actor, patriotic American, loved his country, and that, you could tell, that delivery was a labor of love. So we honor him and respect him and honor that loss. It's a loss to our country. But you know what? It's a gain for heaven because I'm sure that Big Duke 6 is up there on the radio right now. My guest today is L. Todd Wood of CDM Press, Pentagon correspondent now and former helicopter pilot. I figured you'd enjoy that clip, Todd.
I did. I feel the need to like break out in a Jody call, you know, see that family in the ditch, F5E, don't give it, you know.
You know, a lot of people miss the part of that scene. I was just going to show the part where he says the smell of napalm is in the morning is victory, you know. But when I reviewed the clip, I said, no, a lot of people miss this part. And that's the part where he takes the baby and holds the baby and then gets the baby and the mama on a helicopter and tells his guys to get them the hell out of here. Because that's a human part of the American soldier that is real. That is very real because it happens in every conflict and happens all around the world, even in peacetime, where our soldiers are taking care of little ones and the innocent.
Well, it happened in the gate in Afghanistan. Mothers were handing their babies up to the soldiers on the fence to get them on the planes if possible. So, yeah,
and it got them killed. That's also a lesson. That clip is a lesson to our enemies that we have killers still that are commanding our forces. I don't care what the wokies have done to it. They're still there, obviously, and the President and Secretary of War, Hegseth, have proven it with the skill that our folks have shown over these last 3 operations that we've seen. And let's talk about the Iranians here. They should pay attention. They really should pay attention. But Prime Minister Netanyahu, I replaced a clip of him delivering a speech about what the deal needed to show. Has been very clear what Israel thinks it needs for a deal. One of them is ballistic missile limitation down to 300 kilometers. Well, gosh, the Iranians already have proven intermediate range ballistic missiles that can reach southeastern Europe, well into southeastern Europe. How is that going to be doable?
That's a huge threat. I think that's the main issue here. It's not been well publicized, but Israel took some hits in the 12-day war. We used up a lot of our interceptors, but some of them, many rounds still got through in very important areas. You don't see a lot of that on TV, but it's an issue that has to be dealt with. And I think that's the main, because if Rana maintains that capability, they can destroy Israel at will. So just put some kind of warhead on on the Golden BB and get it through. So that's a thing, and it needs to be dealt with. And I think that's the main issue here. The nuclear stuff, it's always days away, but I don't think it's days away at this point. I think that can probably be dealt with inspections or whatever. But it's really the ballistic missile threat that is the real issue, in my opinion.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but they have their own production capability now.
Oh yeah.
Have we destroyed any of that capability in any of these attacks? Has there been any reporting on that?
We specifically went after their nuclear. Maybe the Israelis hit some of it, but a lot of them are underground. These facilities, they've shown a lot of video of underground, depots with hundreds of rounds of very large missiles down there, and the ability to bring them up, shoot, and go back underground. I mean, that's kind of how they're working this whole thing. So I'm sure there's knowledge in the U.S. of where these are, but how do you deal with them? Maybe that's what they're going to deal with on this strike. I don't know.
Yeah. There were two other things out of the five that stood out to me with the Prime Minister's speech. One of them was a guarantee that the proxies around the Middle East and around the world will be dismantled.
Mm-hmm.
A guarantee by the Iranians.
I don't see that happening. I mean, Hamas, maybe they're going to make some progress to where but as Netanyahu said, there's 60,000, shooters with the rifle. How do you deal with that? How do you have a safe, prosperous area with that in place? The ballistic missiles, and then the just missiles out of southern Lebanon. I mean, these are serious capabilities they have to at least make northern Israel very uninhabitable. And, they took the families out of there for a year when the war started, and finally, I think they're back to their areas along the border now. But that's a big issue. I don't know how you solve the Lebanese issue, other than I think strengthening the Christian government, giving them, it's I guess, confederation of a government. You have different posts that have different Muslim or types of ethnic people in different positions, but the Christian is the leader. I think you need to strengthen. That was destroyed in the 1970s after the war that they lost. So I think you need to strengthen that government and strengthen the power of that government, and then give them some power to deal with some of the stuff. Look, I mean, they want to live in peace in Lebanon. You just got to deal with this war in the south. That's what you have to get to, and I think a strong government would help get there. A Christian government.
Yeah. And the third thing, it kind of gets to this discussion about the proxies too, but is a verifiable agreement that has no notice inspections associated with it. I mean, we did that with the Russians. It wasn't no notice. There were specific notification requirements and those kind of things, but it fulfilled its purpose. That agreement, the Open Skies Treaty. It did fulfill its purpose, even though a lot of people said it was weak and those kind of things. But I can't imagine. I haven't been able to develop an imagination, I guess, enough to be able to lay down on a piece of paper what would this regime look like, where you have no notice inspections to verify that all of these things are true and accurate, especially the proxy part of it. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that. I just don't. I mean, we're still trying to get some kind of resolution in Gaza, and that hasn't ended yet. So I don't see those people laying down their arms. I just don't. I don't know. I'm at a loss on how to solve this. Maybe Trump has can thread the needle.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know. I mean, the nuke stuff, like you said, you can do that one. We have a lot of experience in that. We know what it looks like. Other countries have experience in that, been successful at it. You could apply that, I guess, that regime to the ballistic missile force.
Maybe.
Maybe if they will agree to only have 300-kilometer missiles max, which it's easier to hide longer-range missiles, probably, but it's doable. It's just that the whole proxy thing, I just don't, I can't figure that one out. I don't know where that will go. So is there any incentive for the Iranian mullah, the Ayatollah, to take any agreement? I know what he has the foreign minister people say, all that stuff, all the time. But have we put any incentive on the table that would encourage this guy to make the right decision and come to a real, no kidding agreement and stop this war that's been going on against us for 50 years?
I think the incentive has been, if you don't stop it, maybe you'll get to meet the creator. So I think that's the incentive they're giving them at this point.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that they will get to that, and that if we do have to use force, the president and his team will conduct it successfully, like they have done several times now. It's very impressive what the Department of War has done. It's very impressive.
I'm very impressed with the Department of War. They are high speed. They're young. They're professional. They're aggressive, and I love what I'm seeing. Very pleasantly surprised from being on the inside.
Yeah, I am too, and I hear things from leadership. When you see people questioning stuff on social media, well, where's this? When's it coming? And all that. But I'm even out here in Mississippi, I'm starting to hear things that there are processes being put together and in place to address a lot of the remaining questions that are out there. So I think they're doing a great job, from what I can tell. Their hearts are in it, that's for sure.
I would agree. Yeah.
All right, so I got a couple minutes left. What's the latest on Ukraine? You have a lot of reporting that you get in your operation out of Ukraine and Russia. What is the current status of that, real quick?
Russia's continuing to slowly advance. They're not a threat to Europe, in my opinion. They can't even take Donbass. A lot of that's been intentional because they've tried to get to a peace deal. There's a lot of, I guess, theory about why that peace deal has not been reached. There was a report out on Palantir today that's helping allegedly that whole conflict and looking at ways to destabilize the Russian Federation. I just want this war to end. I think there's too many negative things if it keeps going. As far as what's going on the ground, I know that Pete Labor and I, we're doing a show tomorrow. We've been very impactful with our Ukraine sit-rep programming, and he's an ex-special unit mission commander, and he's a high-speed guy and has a lot of contacts on the ground in Ukraine. So we've made a good team in trying to educate people on that. So if you want to go to our Rumble or YouTube channel, you can find the Ukraine sit-rep there, and we'll have another one out tomorrow. But we've had people on the ground in Ukraine, Americans, saying, look, you're doing God's work. Please keep it up. People need to know the truth about what's going on here. This is not a winnable war unless it gets a lot worse. And then who's the winner at that point? So we're just trying to stop it.
Yeah. As the line of time continues, the line of risk continues to increase in this situation. And I don't want to be a doomsayer, but that's just the facts on the ground, man. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you spending some time with us today and talking through some of these very sticky issues.
Thank you. I enjoy the show. It's my favorite. Please, audience, go to cdm.press, put us in your daily scan. It will help us grow the traffic because we've been highly suppressed. So thank you.
Yeah. All right. They know how to do that because I'm highly suppressed and they do mine. Thanks, L. Todd Wood, CDM Press CEO. Tomorrow, Training Tuesday, U.S. Senate candidate Royce White, who is a great American patriot, will be with us for the entire hour. We'll see you then. I'm excited about that.